Welcome to episode 5 of my Road to Unicum series, where I share what I've learned as I progress towards a Unicum account standing. In the last video, we looked at a T-44. We're looking at the same tank today, but in a Tier 10 battle, since the previous episode was a pretty favorable victory in a Tier 8 match. And I talked about in this video, how to manage being the low tier, especially against a lot of Tier 9s and 10s. Now the T-44 has a really poor silver penetration of 175, and you can offset that with premium ammo, which has a very acceptable penetration value of 217. But even if you were spamming gold ammo the whole way, you're still facing some significant disadvantages against Tier 9 and 10 tanks. They have higher hit points, better armor, higher alpha, and better damage per minute. So what I need to do is not put myself in a situation where I'm brawling or trading, because I'm going to be on the losing end of that every time. I'm keeping one eye glued to the mini-map, and I can see that a Waffle TD and a light tank have been lit. So I flex toward the eastern side of the railroad. Notice I head south a little bit, and this is to prevent getting spotted from tanks on the 1 to 5 lines, and I'm using this rock as hard cover so they can't see my approach. The Bat Chat who spotted those targets is hiding behind a rock, so he has no ability to spot right now. I light the Waffle TD and only his foot's sticking out, but I go ahead and take the shot. I've been lit, so I can't hang out here too long, but as it turns out, the Waffle starts to drive out into my field of fire, and I'm rewarded with a kill shot. Immediately I start to move. They have a Tier 9 Arty on their team, which can easily one-shot me. So I move around, and I know this light tank is still here, so I'm kind of being patient. And part of this is because, when I look at the deployment on our base, we have a light tank, but he's sitting in our base, which means he's either AFK or a complete moron. Either way, I don't trust him, so I don't want that light tank to kind of push forward. And you can see I tagged this other light tank from a very far distance by pre-aiming ahead of him, letting my aiming reticle close to the smallest point, and then firing. And again, I've talked about this in the previous video. You don't want to chase moving tanks with your turret to the extent possible. You want to pre-aim ahead of them to minimize the dispersion and then take a good shot. This 263 is on the other side of this hard cover, and I'm just destroying the soft cover. I'll do this because sometimes tanks will be hiding behind there, but this 263 backs out from behind his hard cover, and this is a great opportunity for me to deal damage on him because while he has incredibly thick frontal armor, his side armor is pretty easy to penetrate, even with 175 silver penetration. I get tagged from the E4 across the water, and luckily that shot went into my gun mantlet. I was wiggling a little bit, but I was kind of expecting or thinking that those tanks across the water were still on the other side of the ridge, and that was a bad assumption. So I looked out a little bit there, and the light tank has been exposed, so I take a shot. He's now two-shottable by me, and as I mentioned earlier, I don't trust our light tank in our base because who knows if he's doing anything. So I have the responsibility of making sure this light tank doesn't squeeze through our lines, and I'm using these rocks here to provide hard cover against the tanks on the other side of the water, and I get the kill shot on the light tank. Again, because there is an enemy already on the other team, I'm constantly moving, and I can see on the mini-map an autoloader has been spotted down in Valley. It's already taken some damage, so I'm going to move up here to see if I can get some flanking shots from him. And looking at the mini-map, you can see that a heavy tank is pushing down towards him in the valley, as well as an STB. So the E1 is preoccupied with the heavy tank. I catch him with an easy shot on the side of his turret, and since the STB and the Tiger 2 are both pushing down, I go ahead and move up very quickly against the autoloader, and then I have a full tomato moment here. I was incorrectly assuming that the E1 is going to be facing north or south, and instead I walk right into 2 shots for about 800 damage. That's just such a foolish thing. What I could have done is driven up to the rock, and I would have been proximity spotted, but it would have given me the opportunity to rotate my camera angle and make sure he's not facing me. And even if he is facing me, that's fine. That means that the STB can just drive around the corner and shoot him without any threat of getting damage back. Now you can see on the mini-map that our eastern flank has completely folded, but as I said earlier, I'm not really built to trade with Tier 10 tanks, so what I decided to do is push up aggressively to help us wipe the west side of the map, and then we can deal with the remaining tanks. Our light tank here is pressuring this 263, and I get another flanking shot on him, and they're already backs up from behind this little depression, which gives me the opportunity to finish him off. Watch the Tiger II ahead of me. He makes a really big mistake here. He's not limiting his exposure in between shots. He's just sitting on top of the track, so he eats a shot from a tank destroyer across the water. And we have some easy flanking shots on this 152, which, while it's a tier 8 tank destroyer, has very high alpha. This Tiger II, I can't inexplicably, is firing HE over and over again. But that previous shot on the ISU, I didn't lead him out enough, but at least I did track him. And the Tiger II is going to get smacked again from a tank destroyer. He's not managing his exposure, and I'm going to go ahead and push up aggressively on the 263 because he can't see me during the hard cover. My goal is just to drive right around him and finish him off. But one of our tanks kills him, and looking at the minimap, I can see that 3 of their tanks are right by our base. So I go ahead and push towards cap. Now, as I've mentioned in earlier videos, a lot of times capping doesn't make sense because you're in a situation where you won't be able to cap and you're going to be exposing yourself to lots of fire, but they only have one tank that hasn't been accounted for, and that's the E4. Now, it turns out their E4 made the correct decision to come back and protect cap, and I can't trade with this guy. He'll one-shot me, so I'm keeping him lit. We've got a couple heavies coming toward him, and I go ahead and decide I'm going to try to flank him. Now he finishes off that Tiger II, probably again not managing his exposure correctly. And the STB, who's a pretty good player, but actually recommend after you watch this video, go back and look at the way the STB manages his positioning on the map. He constantly picks good lanes for flanking fire, and up to this point is still at very high HP. So he's done a really good job. And this E4 wasn't born yesterday. He correctly guesses that we're coming this way, he's facing, but as I'm wiggling, it causes him to move his turret around to try to track me, which causes his aiming reticle to bloom, and he misses. And now it's like game on. We're going to charge him, and I get the kill shot there with a flanking shot on his soft hull. Now we know one of their tank destroyers is one of their heavies is right by our base, and so we're going to try to cap it out again. Now, if you look at my position relative to this IS-3, the IS-3 is kind of in the middle of the cap, and he doesn't have hard cover protecting him from any meaningful approach. Whereas I'm kind of staying on the edge of the cap here near these rocks, so they're just to my left. If I need to, I can back up. And in a moment, this becomes very telling because the Conqueror comes around, hits the IS-3, and I go ahead and back up. The Conqueror is at full HP, and again, I can't brawl them. That's a suicide mission. I'll never understand, sometimes I see tier 8 tanks charge tier 9s and 10s, and in the vast majority of situations, you're going to get out-brawled, especially against a tank like the Conqueror. So capping is not going to happen. I'm not going to sit there and try to force it, because I'm just going to eat shells and die. But I'm going to come around and try to keep him lit so that the other tanks that are with us can finish him off. This E1, I go ahead and take a shot at the tumor on top of this cupola. Very low probability of penetrating, but the Jagdpanzer smashes him with his high alpha gun. And the STB comes up, and we're both going to try to flank the Conqueror. Now the Conqueror plays almost like a heavy medium. It's a very fluid tank, and this STB and I are like in the bad situation, like, oh my gosh, he's going to kill us. So I tried to squeeze through this tank. Oh man, for a moment I thought I was going to get stuck. And we're just fast enough to prevent the Conqueror from getting line of sight on us. And once the Conqueror stops chasing, now we're in a much better situation because I can flank around the other side of the rock, and he has to deal with the both of us. But I don't want to expose myself to an easy shot from him. I'm waiting for an opportunity to take a flanking shot. Okay, right here, this looks pretty good. His hull's very perpendicular to me, but his turret manages to snap around. Look how fast and fluidly his turret moves, and that's something to be aware of with tanks. I misjudged his ability to get a shot off on me, and granted, I could afford to be shot once because I had more than one shot's worth of HP left. Based on viewer feedback, in episode 6 we're going to look at the tier 5 French light tank, the ELC AMX, which is an incredibly fun tank to play. And if you respond in the poll in the comments of this video, let me know what tank you'd like me to look at after the ELC AMX. Take care.